If you want something you've never had before, you must do something you've never done before. It's taken me years of tragedy, of losing myself inside, only to realize what I must have always known, that you can be anything you dream. Dream. Dream until you're true. Act on your passion, and when your shot comes, take it. Look fear in the face and embrace it. The time is now. The moment is now. Believe in yourself like I believe this to be true. The world needs more of you.
Awesome. Good evening to each and every one of you who has taken the time to join us this evening on the second episode of Teacher Talks. My name is Walter Peterson, the producer of this all new podcast show, hosted under the auspices of PeaceJam South Africa. I hope that you have all made yourself comfortable, grabbed a cup of coffee, tea, or something to eat, and that you are ready to get into the second episode of Teacher Talks. Teacher Talks is a podcast that is designed to showcase our key issue areas at PeaceJam. Start conversation, walk away with a way to bring about positive change. What are these 10 key issue areas, you may ask, and why are they so important? The 10 key issue areas are focus areas PeaceJam uses to guide change within the community. Our philosophy with these 10 key issue areas at PeaceJam is that if we were to achieve these 10 goals to their maximum potential, we would achieve world peace. Our PeaceJam mentors, PeaceJam ambassadors, and PeaceJam leaders have brought about positive and impactful change within these 10 key issue areas. The key issue area that we'll be getting into this evening with Luke Addison is education and community development. Welcome, Luke. Luke is a drama teacher, and Luke is also a affiliate for the PeaceJam Europe team. So it's so great to have you, on this call this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hello, Warder. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here, and I'm doing very well. It's a nice sunny evening in Woking, England, where I'm currently based at the moment.
Awesome. Yes, guys, I forgot to mention that Luke is all the way in the UK. So different countries right now, which is really cool, different time zones. If I'm not mistaken, you are 1 hour behind of South Africa. So I
Yeah,
think it's 4-6 right now. 4 minutes
yeah,
past
we're a
6.
little bit behind South Africa. We can't keep up, unfortunately.
Awesome. So tell us a bit about who Luke is. What does he do? What is he passionate and what drives him?
Sure. So my name is Luke, and I'm from England. I started out as a drama teacher and kind of developed into a kind of drama, peace education kind of educator, and have been able to use that kind of path to travel to different countries around the world, to engage with organizations like PeaceJam, like Rotary International, and kind of explore teaching not as a kind of teacher to student kind of top down model, but exploring a kind of method of teaching that's really around sitting in circles, sharing ideas, being very free, and that's where the kind of drama teaching kind of comes into it. And when I say drama, it's not drama necessarily to teach young people or anyone to be good actors, for the stage, but actually using drama as a kind of a toolkit, for touching on issues and subjects and global perspectives. So using drama really as a tool of the kind of product rather than the end result.
Definitely perfect. I like that, just the idea of that creative way of teaching. I think when and funny enough, I actually did dramatic arts up until grade 12 as a main subject. I
Mhm.
absolutely love the theater. Like I love the theatrics, and I think just my favorite genre was realism.
Mm.
So the raw, the like heavy in your emotions, the I think for me that was something that I absolutely loved. And I always said that one day I will be going to Broadway, just one day. So we can all dream. And tell me, what was that moment that you discovered your passion for teaching?
So, similarly to you, when I started, actually, when I went to university, which was literally 10 years ago today, which is a really scary thought, my original plan was to be an actor. So I'd chosen drama and English as a combined
Wow.
module. And
Mm.
I'd gone to University of Winchester basically to study drama. And my end goal was to hopefully finish university and be an actor at the end of it. So after my first year, which was mostly comprised of kind of theatre-based modules and voice projection, how to be an actor, and those kind of things, I never lost the kind of passion for acting. But what I found instead was a
Mm.
different route. And as we kind of got into second year, you could re-choose your modules, and there were modules that were offered that were things like theatre in education, and community drama. And I just something kind of switched in my brain, and I thought, you know what, following a path of becoming an actor would be great, but actually
Mm.
following a path of using drama in a kind of teaching environment could also be very interesting. So I pretty much not U-turned, but kind of turned left, and I chose teaching. So I started my second year of university of drama, but all my modules for this drama course were actually theatre and education. And the first
Wow.
lesson, the lecturer said, "Look, your role for this semester is to create a company, like a theatre company, to go and
Mm-hmm.
teach drama out in the community."
Mm-hmm.
And with some friends on my own, some people I knew, I ended up getting into a secondary school, and then going to a reception, which is sort of lower than grade one, so like a kind of preschool, um, and also working with elderly people. And I had all those things kind of all going at the same time, and I was using drama to kind of engage with these different groups of people. Kind of learning as I was going, kind of reading the book and sort of putting it down and going, well, let's try that and let's go by experiment.
Yes.
But it was really this
Yes.
kind of light bulb moment when I was, working with young people, working with kind of elderly people, working with different groups of people in the community around where I was studying, and just a
Yes.
switch went, and I said, this is what I need to be doing.
Perfect. I like that. I think, and this is a saying. When you have passion, you cannot go wrong. When you are passionate about something, you are destined for greatness. If you have a, because I mean, these are things that we feel we have callings in. Like this is your niche. This is, you found what it is that makes you you, and what you're passionate about. So I absolutely love that. And just as we mentioned in the beginning of the call, we will be discussing education and community development. Now, when I think of education, I ask myself, what is basic education? What is the basic definition of education? Education being both the act of teaching knowledge to others, as well as the act of receiving knowledge from someone else. And, with education also refers to the knowledge received through schooling or instructions, and to the institutions of teaching as a whole. And do you feel that we are educating children fully? And the way that we are educating them, does it fully prepare them for the needs of the 21st century? If
Hmm.
yes, how so? And if no, why not?
Brilliant. Yeah, well, I think it's a really, really interesting question. And a lot of the work that I've done has been outside of the school talking from a kind of UK, England kind of curriculum level, as well as doing some international teaching as well. But I'm not an expert, but just speaking from the kind of place that I've come from has mostly been kind of freelance. And that was really on purpose, because to kind of go into schools through an educational curriculum way, there were some restrictions in what I was hoping to do. So I was trying to go into schools to teach drama, to touch on kind of peace education, to touch on kind of global issues. But there wasn't really a straightforward kind of clear map to do that. So a lot of what I had to do, especially when I finished university, was contact schools through people I knew or randomly, and just say, can I come and do a freelance workshop in your school? And that was kind of how I would go into the schools to teach some of the workshops that I was doing. And obviously PeaceJam was a huge part of how I was able to go into schools as well to deliver workshops. But in the kind of context of obviously being a school child myself, a very, very long time ago, and looking at some of the things that are taught now, I think that the year that we've just had with COVID-19, with the kind of the Zoom kind of age, everything moving online, I think there are lots of things that are missing from the sort of current education system, certainly in the UK, and from what I've seen from my personal experiences worldwide as well. Equally, there are lots of things that are very valuable, but I think that there are some real key areas, just simple things like about compassion, things about mental health, looking after yourself, especially after the year that we've just had. I think that with the work that we do with PeaceJam, with local schools, we're seeing a lot of issues that are coming out from the year that we've just had. And speaking as a kind of school child a long time ago, I remember making that transition from school to college to university, and there are so many things that you have to learn essentially on your own, or if you're lucky enough to have sort of parents, to guide you, and simple things like money management, how to kind of manage your money better, or how to kind of live in the real world, living independently, cooking, and that sort of thing. I think these are all things that certainly there are schools that do those things, but I think there are quite big holes in some of those areas, and equally in places like politics, in kind of how the world works. I remember for myself, it was kind of a bit of a reality check, once I started getting to university and college, because a lot of my direction had been drama and theatre. I'd been a little bit kind of blinkered from the world. But once I sort of started to function in the community that I lived in, and you started to see that everything was connected to everything else, and what a big difference the kind of local organizations would have on certain things, on the education system. And I think you don't learn that kind of stuff when you're young. And I think it's the kind of things that I look back on and think, imagine if we were educating young people to be, responsible, compassionate leaders, of the country that we live in. Imagine educating young people on how the local government works, on how to improve things when you don't understand them. And I think that's a real area that's missing, especially in England, in the sort of experiences that I've had. There's not a lot in the curriculum around compassion. A lot of the kind of peace education, a lot of the kind of world view, ethics, morals, discussions are kind of put in the corner under the banner of religious education as a subject that's taught in schools in the UK. And many people kind of push it to the side and say, oh, you deal with that, and when I was at school, in RE, we touched on really important subjects in RE, but we were kind of in the corner. We looked at some things like citizenship and global perspectives, but it was very small, and it was always kind of a one-off lesson, a one-off sort of thing. You were never taught anything that really was going to actually help you once you left school, and that's certainly in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, even with us, we've got a subject called life orientation. And, that being also the umbrella where everything just goes under, but it's like not putting in, and that is why I absolutely love, and I'm all for the award-winning curriculum that we've got, is that the different types of areas and the key areas, areas that are so important and are actually crucial, when and it's something that we maybe might not even think that is as important when we're in school, but it's like when we get into the real world, it's like, okay, this is how, I was taught, and I can take it from there, and I
Mm.
see it from this perspective. I can be empathetic towards someone. I can, what I mean? So I can be compassionate. And um I think that that is why I absolutely love our curriculum, because
Mm.
it really just teaches us all the fundamental things that we really should be learning. So yeah, so thank you so much for that. And then, what do you feel the most exciting or effective learning environment would be? I know that you mentioned in the beginning, just like the classroom style, where you would have them learning, perhaps sitting in a circle, or would that be your most effective learning?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's so difficult to give a sort of blanket answer that covers everything, but I just think that there is that we should have come so far, and many schools have, and many are still catching up. Have come so far from this
Mm.
kind of colonial original model of a kind of teacher at the front of a blackboard and students in a nice neat line looking up, facing the teacher, and the teacher, as you mentioned earlier, kind of spouting the knowledge, and the students nodding and answering correctly. And I think that, certainly for the work that I've had, when you sort of go down the world of kind of drama, and you go down peace education, and you start learning that
Yeah.
actually there are ways to enter a room as a teacher and not be all authoritarian, and get everyone to, call you certain, pronoun,
Yes.
Mr. So and so. You can sit in a circle, you can sit in a circle, you can sit on
Yes.
the floor, you can sit cross-legged, you can
Yeah.
you can start with a warm-up. One of the brilliant things with drama, with the kind of workshops that I do, there's always a point to what we're doing. So we might do a kind of fun game for half an hour about, being stranded on a desert island, and at the end of that game, there's a kind of point to it, and you kind of do the
Yes.
reflection part afterwards. But in the lead up to it, every single workshop I ever do, you have an icebreaker. You have a kind of something that's silly. Even when we moved online last year, it was very, very difficult, but you'd always try and find something that was at least not just a presentation. You'd do something that was
Yes.
fun. So I think that,
Yeah.
in terms of effective learning environments, from the way that I see it and the experiences that I've had, when you go into a classroom, and you're a drama teacher, or you're teaching something kind of fun, and you can sit in a circle, and give the kind of young people the kind of respect, and meet them on a kind of equal level. I think that's the best environment. Now, that's some of the best experiences that I've had have been where I've gone into a room, and I might never have met the kids before in my life, or it might be a challenging school, or a prison, or some of the other areas that I've worked in, and you go in and you say, look, I'm not a teacher. I'm not here to like teach you something. Yeah, I'm like a kind of facilitator. I'm almost like an
Yeah.
educator. I know a little bit, but probably around the room, some of you probably know more about the subject than me. So let's explore it together. And a lot, that's
Yeah.
what a lot of kind of drama and peace education work intertwined is about, is bridging that gap between, how to make young people feel comfortable in the classroom, because everyone has young people, everyone is very different in learning styles. You have people that learn from looking at things, from hearing things, from acting out. Every learning style is different, which is why I said at the start, it's very difficult to kind of give a blanket answer of, the perfect learning
Yeah.
environment. But I think any learning environment that kind of encourages play, encourages kind of freedom of expression, is so important, because that's kind of, when you're having fun, and I can speak from experience and from the things that I've done, that's when you learn the best. When you're engaged in something,
Yeah.
you learn the best. I remember going into a
Yeah.
school and teaching about World War One evacuees, in Britain, and we weren't just reading a big kind of dusty book about it. We were acting it and writing letters home to our parents to think, how would you have felt to go on a train, and
Mm.
imagine you carrying your gas mask and your box. And it was like that kind of play, that kind of adventure. It
Yes.
makes the learning fun, and it does sound a bit cheesy, but I think, I've been to schools in different parts of the world where they're still in a kind of blackboard, listen to me, teacher's always right,
Yeah.
don't move out of turn. Some areas, some that still use a cane. And you kind of think it's very interesting to see these kind of education systems that are trying to educate young people through almost fear or through control. You need a
Yeah.
balance, of course, but I obviously will be the other side of the things because I'm more of a drama teacher. So I come into a room and swan in and say, okay, move the chairs to the sides and sit on the floor if you want, get comfortable, but you see that it works. And the final thing I think as well is having a degree of outside the classroom is so important as well. So, PeaceJam taught me a lot of this and some of the work that I've done as well, where if you're teaching about something, you're teaching about nature, you're teaching about the world, school trips, are so valuable, going and seeing the thing that you're
Yes.
doing, taking kids out into nature to learn about science, from looking at trees and the planet, rather than just books. I think an effective learning environment is something that incorporates all that. It's not just a classroom, it's not just a board and desks and chairs. You need to have more than that.
Definitely. I think that you've really summed it up, and I think that for me, I was also actually going to mention the icebreakers because we've obviously like had our fair share of them on like webinars or like Saturday sessions with Peace Jam. So I think that comfortability and just knowing, and especially with youth, because they've got so many different personalities. They, some of them are introverted, some of them are extroverted, some of them, so you're working with so many different types of characters and so many different types of personalities that you kind of almost have to sort of feel like, get a sense of like what you're working with, who you're working with, and kind of just like embrace it. And I think with the whole icebreakers or doing something really fun or doing something silly, like it kind of just like lets them know that, okay, cool, they don't have to stress, they don't have to be nervous, they don't have to, because
Mm,
anxiety is so real amongst youth. And
mm,
for like the smallest thing. And I think that just setting that tone that, look, we are all here, there's no pressure in terms of like you have to speak, you have to just um be vocal, or at your own time, we are here, we see you, that type of, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're drawn to things that make us feel safe, make us feel comfortable, and that is when we can be ourselves, that is when
mm,
we can be who we are. And I think that's really important. So
mm,
yeah, so thank you so much for that. And then, just going back to what you said earlier with the whole global pandemic and COVID-19, and obviously doing teaching on a whole different platform. I mean, when we had hard lockdown last year, we obviously had to change a few things. So when we had hard lockdown last year, one of the teaching ways that stood out for me was online teaching. Having lessons via Zoom or schools and learning institutions, getting creative with like educational webinars, or like, really cool different types of online learning techniques, kind of just like pushing the limitations when it comes to technology, and
mm.
also just online learning. What are your thoughts on this? Like, are you as a teacher content with this type of teaching and learning, or would you prefer sort of like the old school in teaching person type of learning?
Well, it's crazy. It's been very crazy. I think for me personally, firstly, starting with a positive, I think it was in some ways a brilliant thing because everyone was kind of forced to move very quickly into the kind of modern world. You know, a lot of the organizations that I work with, you know, who are still doing, you know, records by pen and paper, you know, had to move to, you know, some people were, you know, not even knowing how that they laptops had cameras in them for the first time, kind of thing. And I think that actually what the last year has done is kind of pushed us even, you know, forwards a bit of a, you know, not a very kind push, but it's kind of forced us to realize that, you know, if we absolutely have to, then we can rely on, you know, the technology we've got to teach, to learn, to function. And I think that it served the purpose that it did for the last year and the continuing year of this year. I think that it's very difficult to try and rely on this totally. You know, I think that certainly from the UK's perspective, and from my own experiences, you know, what though that kind of access to learning and the accessibility of technology was going up, you know, the mental health, you know, and the kind of productivity of students was gradually going down. You know, because imagine sort of, I can't imagine, but imagine going to university or school or college and your life being virtual, you know, removing the kind of social aspect, which is so important in those areas. So I think that's a kind of, well, that was a positive kind of turn into a negative. But for me personally, you know, being a drama teacher, one of the first things that I felt specifically kind of at the start of last year, a lot of what I do is, you know, kind of freelance drama teaching. I'll go to an elderly people's home or a youth club or a youth group or a school. And, you know, from March last year, you know, the barriers went down, you know, no external visitors, no. So if, okay, there goes that side of what I do. Okay, well, let's see what's still going on. You know, I had some people message me and say, we'd love you to do an online session, an online workshop, an online this. And I'd done a few online stuff before, but, you know, it's always a little bit interesting, especially from my background, being a kind of drama teacher, where the whole point of what you're doing is to kind of go into a room. You know, there might be kids in the corner that are like, you know, I hate drama, which is fine, but you can kind of get them out of that shell and you kind of move things around and create a space that feels free and open. By the end of the session, everyone's like, wow, I wish I was doing this from the beginning. So the most difficult thing, I remember doing a few things last year where I was going into doing a few online workshops and stuff, and I didn't really know the kids in advance. I just said I'd help out a friend or do a thing. I remember kind of, you know, zooming in, 30 kids on the screen. I've got this kind of thing prepared, and I'm like, okay, hello, can you see me? You know, five cameras are off right now. Can you turn on? Hello, everyone stand up. You know, and then the screen will go weird. I don't know if anyone else is standing up, but I'm going to do the activity. And just so it was a bit of a, you know, for me personally, it was a bit of a difficult thing to try and transfer over to kind of, you know, virtual learning. I think if you're going back to what I was saying earlier about the kind of learning environment, you know, I think if you're trying to create a kind of, you know, an inclusive kind of comfortable learning environment, what the computer and the technology doesn't do, you know, is kind of allow you to do that. You know, I think it lets a lot of people turn off their mics, turn off their videos, you know, sit, you know, I remember doing a game and asking for a volunteer, you know, and suddenly everyone on the screen, you know, suddenly their floor or their ceiling became really, really interesting, and they were just looking around, or suddenly their camera didn't work or their microphone didn't work all of a sudden. And it, you know, I think in terms of that, the accessibility of it was very difficult. I think we can learn so much from it, and I think that, you know, in the circles that I've moved in, for sure, you know, the massive negatives and massive positives for both, but it has absolutely kind of connected the world. And I've got good friends who have had guest speakers from, you know, Uganda or Cuba or India come and speak to their little school, you know, in Winchester, you know, or the UK via Zoom, and all the kids get to meet this person who would never have met otherwise, because they wouldn't have even thought possibility. So that side of things is great, and I hope that side of it continues, you know, that teachers think, well, hang on, if we want to teach a lesson about, you know, ethics or about world perspectives, we could contact that person that we know in New York and see if he could zoom into our classroom. You know, I think if that kind of mentality is, it would be fantastic. But I don't think, you know, we can't have a fully 100% online learning experience, because, you know, from people I know and experiences that I've seen, this kind of, even for myself, a lot of what I do, because I was a teacher, it all became online teaching, and my kind of income was from teaching, and suddenly I became an online teacher as opposed to a in-person teacher. And you sort of take for granted how the effects of being zoomed out, you and I would do this habit of having a meeting and then I finish at 3, so I get another meeting at 3 because I'm free at that point, but I forget that I'm not going to leave the space that I'm in, and suddenly you're staring at your screen, and you're not even 30 and your back's starting to click and you think, oh blimey. So I think it's not, that side of it wasn't good, but there are definitely positives we can take from it, and and should stay. But I think you can't talk about teaching and education without it being inclusive and in person.
Agreed. I think that's a really good answer. I think I also like the whole idea of just networking and meeting people that you would have never been able to meet, that are from different countries. I think that for me has been like the biggest opportunity. And also just with PeaceJam. I've met you, I've met so many amazing people from so I think that is definitely one of the pros. And I agree with you, teaching and I think delivering education, and not just teaching someone like a curriculum, but also just how, I always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So also just like, giving the way that you are teaching the specific curriculum, the way that you are so I think that in person definitely kind of is needed and is so necessary. Just speaking with online teaching and lessons and so forth, what about those students who don't have access to Wi-Fi or a secure internet connection, to be able to access the learnings on these different platforms online? Is there support from school, educators, institutions to make this possible for all students to have access to learning? Have you had this specific experience or this situation before?
Yeah, really, really good point as well. And I think it's something that is a real, I sort of take for granted. Everyone, we all take for granted. I've got a phone and a laptop, and when things turn online, it was a bit inconvenient, but okay, everything's just this now. And you forget that that's a massive privilege, to have a phone and a laptop, in your house, it is a luxury. And I think, these are kind of issues that we've seen all the time. For the last sort of 10 years that I've been a teacher, there's been issues of inaccessibility, for funding to go on school trips, or to go to have the to get students to have the same experiences as other students, where money is an issue. And I think that with things moving online, I think it was very easy to assume that, okay, well, we're just online then, we just chat on our phone. And I think we forget, that there are lots of people, lots of families, lots of young people who maybe have one computer between the family still, maybe don't have their personal smartphone, or don't have access to those things. And I think, obviously, I'm not within the kind of English education system, but what I do know, is that there are NGOs and organizations that have done some sort of brilliant work to try and bridge that gap. And a lot of work that I do with Winchester Rotary, for example, created a kind of refurbishing a laptop scheme, and they were able to give some laptops and some smartphones to young people in the community, who couldn't access them, to ensure they got online. And the feedback from that was, all the students and the parents were like, thank you, they literally had an education thanks to an old refurbished laptop that was posted to them. So I think it's really important to remember that as well, that for us, for most people, that it was a bit of an inconvenience to move online. I've got to, my meetings are online, but we had the option, to do so. And I think that certainly from the last year, especially, where we are with PeaceJam, we're in sort of countries like Uganda, where I've got some very good friends, and it's just the experience is there, where I've been and taught, and my friends are there. It's not as easy as just sending the kids home and saying, well, use your parents' computer or use your phone. It's a completely different situation there, and it's very difficult to try and bridge that gap. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think moving online is a great experience for those that can do it. You've got access to the internet, to videos, to resources, but for those who can't access it, it can be a real problem. And I hope there are some really good things in place, to support people who can't.
I 100% understand. Yes. And then just with that whole thing, I think that the NGOs and the NPOs that do that is really amazing. They have like I personally, so I'm not too sure what the NGO's name is, but I also came across something just to sort of go through it. And basically what they did was they were saying that if you do not have any specific mobile phones or any access to internet or any access to any of these things that require you to go online, your struggles, I think it's really amazing that they are so hands on.
Mm.
So yeah, so I think that's really amazing. So thank you for that. And then getting into community development, which is a topic very close to my heart, something that screams passion, compassion, and empathy. In your opinion, what is sustainable development, and how can sustainability be achieved?
Yeah, again, a good question. I think sustainable development means lots of different things to different people. I think the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are certainly an interesting step in the right direction to trying to coordinate an effort to at least reach them. But I think, in my opinion, sustainable development really is just about progressing, moving forwards, reaching some goals that are both that are kind of environmental, social, economic, in that way, and just trying to reach them in a way that is productive and as least destructive to natural resources and the ecosystem as possible. I think that how it can be achieved again, is through partnerships with ethical organizations, with organizations that are running on good principles and morals, not putting profit before lives, and just a kind of general understanding of why we're doing it, really. I think in the experiences I've had internationally, where we've been sort of trying to teach about the sustainable development goals, it's not about reaching these brilliant goals so that group individuals can win some medals or some badges. It's it's the lifeline for the planet, for people. And I think once people understand that, it will move a lot faster, the kind of pace towards achieving them. But yeah, I think that's my thoughts on sustainable development.
Feel really strongly about as well. I think I might have like a biased opinion because I am in community development, so maybe I might just have a biased opinion, but I absolutely love it. What do you think is the importance, of
Sure. There's a little bit of a delay for you, but I can read the question now. So I think in terms of education and the role it can play in community development, obviously it's instrumental. I think that you can't have a community without the young people from that community going into it. So I think that some of the best projects that I've seen, some of the best educational responsibilities have been the ones that have incorporated young people, local schools, youth groups with the communities that they live in, whether that's schools or scouts or those kinds of things. And I think that one of the things that PeaceJam certainly has taught me and has been instrumental in much of what I do myself and with the PeaceJam work is whenever we have a PeaceJam conference, so talking from a kind of Winchester UK perspective and a European perspective, in the experiences that I've had, when we have these conferences, these weekend conferences, one of the main things that we do on the Sunday, we have the action projects, the service projects. We get the young people from that conference going out into the community to go and do something useful. So if we had 200 kids for the weekend, they've not just sat on chairs for the weekend and sort of clapped and been participants. They've gone and been actually useful in the local community. And it's an ethos and a mentality that I really try my hardest to push whenever I go to organizations, conferences around the world, where you go to a big, illustrious conference in a city or a town, but everything's in the conference venue, everything's gated off. And you think, well, what was really the point of having this 1,000 people in this tiny area in the other side of the world to come in, clap a lot and leave? And I think that one of the things that PeaceJam does so well with these action service projects, we when all the kids leave a PeaceJam conference, they leave feeling educated and they leave feeling like they've done something useful. And just some examples of some of the community projects that we've done. We took young people into a local elderly people's home to go and meet the residents. We had these kind of school kids going to meet elderly residents, and chatting to them, learning about their lives, and some incredibly sort of heartwarming stories from that alone. We had young people going in and doing litter picking up, planting trees, going to a kind of homeless center and talking to residents there, and even some projects we had where they were kind of on the high street with clipboards, talking to the community and making notes about things. I think that for me has installed this absolute necessity of having, a link with the education institutions of a community, with that wider community. And I think if you're not encouraging the kind of children from a school to engage with that community in some way, it's difficult to know kind of what they're doing, without kind of trying to encourage a community mentality. And I think that that's something I learned from PeaceJam a long time ago, something that I've seen very, very well in some places, and other times, not so well at all. But I think that's definitely essential.
Perfect. We have a question for you, Luke, from Makuru Trevor. Hi, Makuru. I think that you might know him. He said it's always nice listening to you, Luke. How can online teaching be made more effective for special needs kids, low vision, etc.?
Super. Yes. Hello, Trevor. Good to see you again. Thanks for a good question. Again, a really interesting point. I think it's one of the things that we forget again when we talk about moving online and the accessibility of it. Trevor is a friend of mine from Uganda, actually, which is what I mentioned earlier. And I think it's very easy to think, certainly for us, for me and for those of us that live in England or kind of Western countries, that that move to being online was just a bit of an inconvenience, and it sounds incredibly privileged to say, but that was the reality. Whereas there are communities and schools and whole countries where it wasn't so easy to move online, and particularly even in the Western world, there are communities and young people who have disabilities, or where moving online isn't as easy. And I think that it's a very difficult thing to give a whole solution to. I think that maybe from my perspective, creating some sort of friendship kind of buddy system, where you've got a young person in the classroom where maybe they have learning difficulties or accessibility issues. Maybe you can find a partner student to kind of work closely with them to ensure that they are able to make the lessons, do the homework, maybe some kind of outside class study groups, that kind of thing. I think it doesn't need to be a simple kind of an issue of, well, I can't access the computer, I can't take notes, so I can't, there's no point. There are loads of ways to bridge that gap. You can find maybe people in the local community who might be able to come together to create a small group of young people, for example, maybe all share one computer, 3 young people, maybe one of them or 2 of them, or all 3 of them, have a learning disability or difficulty, and they can share the same computer and make it more of a social experience. I think that was the biggest thing that was lost, I think, for everyone when everything went online, was the social, the lack of social engagement. So I think just to keep that high, however you can, maybe in a church hall or a community group, or maybe where you can kind of take, if a school, for example, is doing their lessons online, so the young people's only option is to log in and view that at their home computer, maybe there is a way to use a kind of community space to access that lesson. Maybe get 5 kids into that community space, put up a screen, and then encourage a kind of discussion about the class. I think those kind of things I think will be essential. I know lots of people that are doing that stuff already, but I think for young people that have learning disabilities or are struggling to engage with the online learning, I think it's essential that the schools, the young people, the students in their classes, reach out to them and say, or ask them. That's also the most important thing. Ask them, how can we make the learning experience richer and more valuable, and more accessible for you? Because again, it is hard to speak on behalf of something that you don't know, and to make a decision or to implement things for things that you don't know, without asking the person. I think lots of the problems in the world come from going, well, I think those people might like this thing, or maybe they would, when they don't speak to the people, and I think if you've got a young person with learning disabilities or difficulties, you could say, how can we make the experience better? And listen to them, give them a platform. Maybe they have some ideas you hadn't thought of yet, and then give them the baton. Say, okay, well, you tell us. We don't know how to make it better. We're just trying our best. So yeah, I think first and foremost, speak to those students, and ask them what you can do. And then if there aren't any answers after that, then try some kind of community learning spaces or something.
I think that is a really good answer. And Trevor, I hope that you are happy with that amazing answer, in my opinion. And it was really great. I like the whole idea of, having a buddy if they aren't as equipped, or if they aren't able to, due to their special needs, to access specific types of education, or the way to access this. I think that is a really good suggestion. And then I think, just asking how can we help you? How can we assist you, and what is it that you require of me in order to deliver effective teaching? So I think that those are some really good points. And yeah, so, and also just, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to ask any questions, to pose to our guest speaker this evening, or myself, please do not hesitate to pop them in the comment section. So, Luke, tell me, just going back to the key role that education plays in community development, how would you go about teaching your students about community development?
Super. similar to what I said before, I think just installing the necessity of it. So it's not just doing a bunch of stuff and kind of crossing your fingers and hoping the kids enjoy it or the young people enjoy it, but actually going to the core of why it's important. So going back to the service projects, the action projects, a lot of what we did, it wasn't just going to a project, doing it, dusting our hands off, pat ourselves on the back and saying brilliant, and going home. Once they come back from the service projects, we would then have a family group session where the onus of that family group was to reflect on the service project that they'd just done. So when the young people came back from the elderly people's home, it was more of a kind of question of saying, okay, well, why was that important? And the young people would say, well, I never really spoke to anyone other than my grandparents. I didn't really know that those things existed. And you could kind of see these seeds starting to sow, these sort of seeds of growth happen, where they're like, wow. So I'm a 15-year-old in this community. I had no idea there was an elderly home right there, and there were people who were lonely, and me going there for one day made such a difference. So I think that it's about, installing that knowledge first, why it's important, or it's about not taking kids on a kind of a litter pick, and dragging them around and making them go, oh God, litter picking, but instead, showing them a video, of some of the awful, states of some of the world, due to pollution, or videos of what happens to, animals when they come in contact with the pollution, to the point where they're like asking their teachers, please, can we go and pick up litter? I think it's that's where the education is so important, because I think that once you kind of learn about these things first, then and that's what we kind of try and do with PeaceJam and with some of this sort of work. Is it's not going there and, again, like I said earlier, not being a kind of teacher to students and saying you must do this and you must do that. It's creating safe environments and spaces where these kind of conversations can develop. One of the best sort of PeaceJam experiences that I've had in family groups or in kind of open workshops is where, we ask the question, what are some problems or issues in your communities that you can that you address, and how can you fix them? And just getting kids to sort of start thinking for the first time, oh wow, well, I guess there's homelessness in my community, and well, I guess we could maybe do that. And you start going, well, you could do it, and they go, yeah, we probably could. And a lot of certainly what we do with PeaceJam Europe at the moment with the European youth team, we've managed to get some funding from fundraising into a little pot, and we're actually giving that funding to young people and their projects across Europe. So where we're asking those questions, what is an issue and how can you attempt to alleviate it a little bit, we've actually got some funding to help you with that, and it's kind of completing the circle overall. So I think that the role that education plays really is not trying to kind of force, you can't kind of force changes of attitude, and you can't force people to care, you can't force people to think something's important, but you can give them access to resources and things that will make them want to do it first, and then through that in education, you've then given them the environment and the platform to do so.
Perfect. I think I am experiencing some technical issues on my side. Can you see me, Lou?
I can still see. I can see you and hear you.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So, with that being said, we have a very exciting question, which is the $1 million question. And it is by Trevor, our famous Trevor this evening, who seems to be throwing us with questions. I love it. So he has asked the big question about how can one be a part of PeaceJam. This is a really, really amazing question, and we will get into it a bit later. But just for now, I think, Trevor, what you can do is you can either reach out to Luke, which you obviously have a friendship with already. Just find out, chat to him about how you can get involved. in which PeaceJam he could work with. Where is Teva situated,
Uganda, in Kampala.
Luke?
Kampala, Uganda. So there is a PeaceJam
Sorry.
already for you, Trevor.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So, Trevor, Luke is going to connect you. And Luke, can I trust that you will take care of Trevor and
Mhm.
get him connected and get him involved in PeaceJam? Can I leave that with you?
Yes.
Awesome. And then, just one of the last questions, second last questions actually, is, just the qualities that you have embodied, with the years that you have been involved in one of the best international organizations, being PeaceJam. Has this taught you skills, qualities that you wouldn't have learned anywhere else? And if yes, how so?
Yeah, brilliant. So a great question and a great opportunity to talk about PeaceJam from a sort of personal perspective. My introduction to PeaceJam, as I think you saw earlier with the photograph, was a conference in Monaco with Archbishop Desmond Tutu as the laureate. And I remember going to the conference, and I didn't know a lot about PeaceJam. I didn't really know what the conference was about. I just knew that I'd be there for a weekend, mentoring some young people, whatever I thought that meant. And one of the very first things that I learned really was um, coming from a background of I've been to some conferences and some organizational things before that had high profile guest speakers, but certainly being a young person, you were always at the back of the line, for accessibility towards them. I went to some conferences with some big names, even in the peace world, but the only way to go and meet that person was to pay a large amount of money and join a black tie gala dinner that evening to even speak to them, or join the back of a queue for Q&A and kind of hope that you were picked. And one of the things that PeaceJam did that really stuck out to me, especially with this conference and all of those since, is have this incredible balance of both putting an incredible human being such as Desmond Tutu or the Dalai Lama or the many incredible laureates that we have on a kind of pedestal, and rightly so for the work that they do, but equally having them in this kind of accessible environment where the young people of the conference can pretty much access them as much as they want. We had for Desmond Tutu's conference, for example, when we were doing our workshops and our projects, he would walk around. He would came into my drama workshop at one point, popped his head in and joined in, and he came to some of the other ones as well. And then at the end, we watched his biographical film, Children of the Light, in the cinema, and he was there in the big cinema full of kids, and he was signing things and doing selfies, and as you can see from my photo, taking pictures. So PeaceJam had this incredible way of finding this balance between, yes, this individual is incredible and has had the most extraordinary life and is in many ways a kind of superhero, but equally they are a human and they are here for the weekend, and you can speak to them. They're just here. Go and say what you want to speak. Go and say what you want to say. So we had loads of conferences in Winchester every conference in Winchester where we had, the laureate would have lunch with a group of kids at the lunchtime, and we had some conferences where the laureate was maybe in the sort of waiting area, sort of chill out area, and we had a couple of kids say, "Oh, we really wanted to just quickly ask something." And we'd pop our head in and say, "Can these kids just quickly ask?" And say, "Of course." And Jodie Williams was sort of brilliant for that. Go in, have a chat, no problem. And I think that was one of the best things that PeaceJam taught me, was this balance between. I think it's what a lot of organizations and a lot of institutions kind of get wrong, is this kind of they do the pedestal part and they do the kind of omnipotent kind of deity aspect, but then they make it very inaccessible, especially for young people, who have come to the conference, have traveled, across the world to see, and you've got to pay money, or you've got to have a black tie suit, before you can even speak to them. And I think that's the best lesson I learned from PeaceJam, was how to engage with and interact with these people in a way that was both respectful and full of admiration what they do, but then equally accessing them, as people. And through PeaceJam Europe, we had a conference online last year, and Jodie Williams was our laureate, and we asked her, as part of the conference, can she also do a kind of extra Zoom call with about 20 young people that we put together? And she said, yeah, of course. So we sat on the Zoom call, we chatted with her, and it was things like that. It's that really brilliant natural accessibility to the laureates. I think that PeaceJam has been so brilliant in delivering, and is one of the things that we try really hard to do where we can.
I think also it's that personal touch. It's that just making it personal and letting you it's kind of like a connection. It's a bond. It's those type of qualities that people are so open. Like, I think for me, one of the best experiences have been with working with PeaceJam, and working with different affiliates, being yourself as well. I think that we are just so different, but like our passion is what we have in common. Our the drive that we have to help people, the drive that we have for the things that we do, is what connects us, and that we're always just so eager to help someone. And how can we help? How can I think for me that is really stood out, and that for me personally has been one of the best things. So yeah, so that that is PeaceJam. That is what we do. That is what we're about. I mean, I'm so tremendously grateful and so blessed to be a part of PeaceJam South Africa. And yeah, just closing off. Do you have any final words of encouragement, for our audience watching, for those who are possibly, demotivated when it comes to education, for those who aren't reaching their full potential academically? Do you have any words for them?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I guess, just ask for help, when you need it. I think there's a kind of increase in the idea of, asking for help or showing a weakness. Asking for help is a weakness, and it's not. I think some of the most powerful people I know are those that have come out outright and said, I need help. I don't understand that. Can you tell me more? I think that that's something that I think, if more people comprehended, they would be a lot better off. I think as well, certainly in my life, in my background, I think the educational system, the curriculums, the educational institutions, they have a real habit of trying to categorize and kind of box people or label people in a certain way. And I think that that's not, the older you get, the more that you experience, you learn that we're not supposed to be in boxes, or have specific labels attached to us. And I think it's important to think outside the box. I think, we see time and time again that, some of the craziest ideas, that started out being, borderline, or even in many cases illegal, or borderline, outrageous, became the very ideas that changed the very way that we live. And I think that there's a tendency for people to be put off to think differently, or to raise their voice, or to speak out, through fear of being different or being wrong. And I think that if more people just said, you know what, I'm going to just say what I'm thinking, and I can apologize for it later, or I'm just going to go for this thing that I want to do, and ask for help along the way, would be in a really, really good place. So yeah, I think that's what I would say to anyone who is feeling that way.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. And also thank you so much for being our guest this evening on the second episode of Teacher Talks. It was an absolute pleasure as always.
Mm.
Having you on this evening and getting your thoughts as well as your understanding of the topics that we have discussed. We truly hope that what was discussed this evening provides an effective way of teaching to be implemented in your future teachings, although you kind of are already doing absolutely everything. So,
Mm.
you know, but thank you.
Super. Well, thank you so much. I'd never been to South Africa before, so I'm happy to have at least visited virtually this evening, and hopefully an in-person visit can be on the horizon. But thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do, and yeah, I think you said at the start, and it really is a sort of testament to the kind of virtual age we're in now. We've never had the pleasure of meeting in person, but thanks
Yeah,
to the beauty of technology, we are the best of friends, and I think that's
exactly.
a real show of what we can all get from this past year. So no, thank you so much. It's been lovely, and I look forward to seeing the next ones. And thank you all for listening and for joining us. And have a wonderful evening.
Bye. Good evening. Thank you so much. Awesome. Just tying up the engagement that we just had with Luke, I just want to say thank you to our viewers. You guys could have been absolutely anywhere else, but you have chosen to be here with us this evening as we had the powerful discussions. And thank you for your ongoing support. Thank you to PeaceJam South Africa for hosting the second episode of Teacher Talks on the platform this evening. And not forgetting my amazing tech team. Thank you so much. Catch the third episode of Teacher Talks next week, same place, same time. So it'll be next week, Wednesday, the 6th of October at 7 p.m. And we will be joined by an educator from Kleinberg Primary School. I'm not going to say who the educator is, but follow our socials. And for those who are following us and always interacting with us on our platforms, thank you. And to those who aren't following us, we are Peace Jam South Africa on Facebook and at Peace Jam SA on Instagram, and then Mentoring Peace Builders NPC, Mentoring Peace Builders South Africa NPC on Facebook, as well as at Mentoring Peace Builders SA on Instagram. And just lastly, I want to take a moment to call out all educators, be it teacher advisors, principals, student teachers. As you have seen previously, our amazing work, workshops, conferences, facilitatings that we've obviously had the opportunity of creating. We have an award-winning program that we'd be so delighted to share with you. And just as myself and Luke have had the discussion, the award-winning curriculum, the things that it teaches and installs into youth is just phenomenal. And I would like you guys to know more about it, So I would like you guys to also implement these different programs according to your schools. And just how do you guys go about this? How do you go about setting up possibly having these programs implemented into your schools? Reach out to us, reach out to us on our socials. Also feel free to contact me. You can either contact me directly, which is Watla Peterson on Facebook, and you can also contact me on my email address, which is programs@mentoringpeacebuilderssa.org. And yeah, let's not only find out information and about the programs, but also let's build sustainable long-term working relationships. And once again, thank you to each and every one of you who have joined us this evening. Guys, until next time, sending you all so much love and light. Have a blessed evening. Until next time.